everybody.
Sean and Kelly here with the Price and Price Group of eXp Realty. And before you say anything, today, if you are considering selling a house, you really want to watch this episode. She does not know what we're talking about. Here we go. Okay, so here we are.
I'm excited. What is this even about?
So I wanted to surprise Kelly with this. I wanted to have a conversation. We've mentioned several times in our market reports, comments about how sellers should prepare their house for sale. For example, we would say, just because you like the color doesn't mean that's the color it needs to be throughout the house. Or
Right.
just because you love this highlight of a home or the oak toilet seat cover, while that is very expensive, does not add value to your home. So I want to have a conversation with her because we have sold a couple of houses together in our 20 years. I want to give us the worst sale situation
of ours?
Yes.
Okay.
And then our most recent one, our Glen Lake house, in which Kelly did all the staging and all the prep work. And I want to kind of get into her mindset of how she did this. So yes.
This is like one of my favorite topics in the whole wide world.
And we're just gonna, I just want to learn how you think. So maybe it'll help a seller understand the strategy behind what you're doing. Not
how I think now and how I used to think, and it was like, whew, how did I think that, right?
Yes. So little context of our first house ever. We bought a house while we were in chiropractic school. We lived there for a little over a year.
We as in he. I was in baby making school.
That's right. We lived there a little over a year, and we got very creative when we lived in this house. We painted our living room was this.
It was so bright red that when we had that picture, it put like a red tint on our skin.
Everything, and we thought it was beautiful. Our kitchen was bright yellow.
It was such a happy color.
Our hall off of this bright red living room and bright kitchen was, what did we finally end up with?
Green.
We painted it green, we painted it blue, we couldn't figure it out.
Well, because the bathroom off of it ended up being like this bright teal green. Yes. So I had this, this is exactly what I said. Do you remember this? I said, I want to feel like I'm walking in a flower. and the hall is like the stem. So that was when we settled on green. But the thing is that you thought it was also a good idea.
I did. That was right. We were young and we did not understand real estate. And I was talking to an investor, so we had to sell the house quickly.
I was 20 and 21 in this house.
We had to sell very quickly because remember the school lost its accreditation, so we had to move. And so we had to sell the house so that we could move. And so I called one of those "We Buy Ugly House" signs. And I was talking to the guy, and he said, "Well," he goes,
and it wasn't an ugly house until we painted it like that.
That's exactly it. And that's what I realized with talking to this guy. So he goes, first thing is you don't want to work with us because we're only going to give you 70% of the value. He said, but we do need to come in and see because when you live in a house, you might think the walls are really pretty and the carpet's in good shape. He said, but when you look at it from a person who's going to buy it, it might be different.
And I remember I couldn't wait for him to come over because I'm like, he's going to eat his words, right? He's going to walk in and love this place and think, not you guys.
Yeah. So that is our worst house. We ended up selling the house to a neighbor.
Yes.
Fortunately, we sold it for sale by owner because we were didn't know anything. We put a sign in the yard. Luckily, they saw it and they bought it.
Yeah.
So we were able to get out of that house, thank goodness, and they painted it. But anyway, so that is how not to prepare a house. Do not paint it all these multiple colors.
Expect to get top dollar, right? We got just enough to cover our moving expenses to Houston. Remember?
I don't even think we sold it for anything like any profit. It was just we just got our down payment back basically or something.
Basically, yeah.
So that was what we liked at the time. We prepared that house in a way that we liked at the time. That's not how we do this. So up here, when we sold the Glen Lake house, Kelly was very specific with how she staged this house, and it was beautiful. We got comments like, "Oh my gosh, is this house staged?" And then they look in the closets and see we still live there. So she had a lot of things to overcome. So this is what I want to dive into a little bit. Number one, we had 4 kids living with us. We had 2 pets. We ran 2 businesses. We had a lot of stuff. And so what was your mindset? Like, what were you thinking with regards to, first of all, what needed to be done to prepare the house to show at its best?
Well, I guess first would be the mindset first to then get into what was I thinking, right? And my mindset was just like with one of our other businesses, we had years of experience in going in and selling items, selling our product, right? So I had it ingrained in my head that right now, my house is the product.
It is the product.
And when you're selling a product, I was like, okay, we're gonna appeal to everyone. So
Yes.
I pretty much always kind of stay on top of the magazines and what everybody likes right now. So I didn't have to do a whole lot of work to figure out what was
that
on
was.
trend, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm like, okay, so we're gonna do gray, and we're gonna everywhere, right? We're gonna do
Except for
gray
the black
every
kitchen.
single where or every single where, everywhere.
We're going to paint
Yeah.
the cabinets to be white.
That my mindset was selling the product.
Okay.
And
which
that
is,
was it.
Which is brilliant because we've run 3 businesses together: our real estate business, our chiropractic office, and we had a product manufacturing business.
Mm-hmm.
And in each one of those businesses, I would go in and focus on like the mechanics of the business, and then I would be like, oh yeah, just paint the walls white. She would come in and be that. So
like
we
nobody's
changed-
gonna. I mean, now they might want white,
Yeah.
but nobody's gonna want
Yeah.
to go in and see what you even have if
Yeah.
they aren't like intrigued.
And then even
if
with-
it doesn't draw them in.
That's exactly it. And even with the manufacturing business,
Yeah.
the down to the bags and the packaging.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
we went to wholesale markets, right? Because our stuff was in thousands of retail businesses nationwide. So we had to go to these big wholesale markets across the country. And I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of owners walking in and they see booth after booth after booth.
And we
And
had
he's
to
like,
stand out.
all it is our product. And I'm like, no, you have to make them want to stop and see what is this, especially when your product is this
Yes.
small, right?
So here's what it comes down to. She is the ultimate customer. She does, and
That's
I'm not
true.
saying she's
That's true.
materialistic, but she does like to shop. She does like to feel what is being
Yeah.
put out, and she takes
That's
that and she
true.
put it towards this house in Glen Lake. So getting back to the house, she did exactly what you just said. That house was the product,
Mm-hmm.
and she looked at how it's not how.
I became a salesman, right?
Yes.
This was no longer my baby. This was no longer my family member,
Yes.
you know? I do really relate to our home like that with all the kids. It's
Yes.
an extended part of our family. And it had to shift,
Yep.
right? Even though maybe we'd lived in it forever and raised our kids there. No, you have to cut that out and it becomes the product and I'm the salesperson.
Yep. And in doing so, I mean, I can remember kind of just some of the stuff that we did. We loaded up 2 pods worth of
Yes.
things that we didn't need to live on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And we took them and we shipped them off to the pod storage, and we lived in the house as a show house.
Yeah.
She was very strategic in storage bins so
Right.
that the kids, if we got a showing, all of a sudden the kids would just throw their stuff in the storage bin, slide them under the bed, and they would all vacate.
Right. We had
Yeah.
some of those that were under the bed. You're right.
Yeah.
And then incorporating design aspects like baskets and things like that had lids. Right.
Yes.
You can find that, or even the ones without lids. Put all their crap in there from the morning getting ready for school, and then have that pretty throw blanket that they cover up with at night that you put on top and cover it all up. Right.
Okay,
So it just
yeah.
looks like a throw basket.
Yeah, yeah.
That's classy and it did look staged.
Exactly. So from the mindset perspective, the house became a product, and then you wanted the product. You wanted somebody to come in and feel, number one, and correct me if I'm wrong, number one, at home, but also number two, like it was a clean living. It wasn't like lived in a country house with all the walls covered
Right.
with furniture. You wanted to feel like how did you want it? What feeling did you
There
want
were
to create?
there were 3 things. I wanted them to feel drawn in.
Okay.
So it had to look like a magazine, right? I mean, they had to want to go in and kind of see what was next. What
Yeah.
did they do in here and what did they do in there? And even people who aren't into home design, they still care about that thing. It
It
draws
does
them
draw
in,
them in. I
right?
see it with buyers all the time. They get drawn into
Yeah.
a house based on, like you said, it's almost like an adventure to go, oh, I can't wait to see this next
Yeah.
room. How is this done?
One
Yeah.
of the things that really made me realize how important that was we had a guy that came in one day. It was a husband and wife, and I think they may have had a kid. And he seemed kind of bored when he walked in the front door, but then when he saw this, he went through to the dining room and then to the kitchen. Then he goes, "Oh wait, they have an office." And he already knew we had an
Yeah.
office, you know, whenever he came in, because that was important to him. But he was actually excited after seeing, wow, they've done this with the kitchen, they've done this here. Now I want to see the office. So that's what really made me think, okay, it does draw them further
Yes.
into the house, right?
That's a really good point. So from a listing agent's perspective, what we tell our clients is the purpose of the pictures on a listing, that it's not to sell the house. You have to be very strategic with what you
Right.
do with the pictures. You have to intrigue them enough to get them to the house. So you don't want to put
You can't have too many
you can have too many pictures
Yeah.
to where they can be like, oh, okay, that room looks like it's too small, and they rule the house out. They never
Yeah.
make it. Your house has to sell when you get them there so they can see the beauty of the home. So when they walk in the door, you need to look at, it's almost like an advertising campaign. Your headline sells your sub-headline. Your sub-headline sells the first paragraph of the story, and then the first paragraph sells the rest of the story, and then you summarize.
Yeah.
So every room in the house can be something where you're drawing them in. That's a really good analogy there.
So that was the first thing. I wanted to draw them in. The second thing is I wanted it to also be very basic. Right?
Yes.
We say that all the time. It has to appeal to most people.
Yes.
It might not be exactly what they want, but it needs to show them, oh, well, with all this is easy for me to change, right? This is easy for me to change the color here. I chose in that one, and luckily it paid off, to be creative with only one thing. If you're gonna be creative, right, to show them, hey, and you can have personality in here, which I don't always recommend, but we did keep our kitchen black.
Yes.
We had a lot of white cabinets, tons of storage and all this, so it wasn't like an overwhelming black kitchen.
And there wasn't a lot of black wall space. It was highlights.
That's true. It was highlights, but we did keep it black.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I would say 50-50. We got half like, oh, the kitchen's black. And I'm thinking they would be ones that would change it. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah.
But then we got the ones that were like, I love this black kitchen. I never would have thought of this. So this is really great. And that was good. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. But it was almost like a highlight wall. Like you walk into some places and you have a highlight wall. So just add something to it.
We had a ton of windows, and
but you have to be very careful with this, because I would go too crazy with this.
Yeah.
I trusted her with this, and it paid off.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're considering doing something like that, please ask us before you.
And I was prepared. I was like, okay, if we get too many of the, ooh, it's black, I was prepared to, we're gonna change this.
It, yeah.
Week 2, I would have changed it if it had.
That's exactly the next point. Is you have to listen to feedback and be open to that without getting offended. When we first started real estate, we had a trainer, and he was so proud of his house. He bought this house and he had decorated it, and kind of the way he described it reminded me of our flower with a stem. And he said that he was showing some people through the house, and he was a licensed real estate agent.
Yeah.
He was showing some people through the house, and they were making comments like, "Oh my God, I cannot stand this color. Oh my God, would you imagine?" He got so emotional he kicked them out. Like he made them leave the house. He would not let them buy that. So you cannot get emotional. It has to be totally objective. It's just a product.
Yeah.
They're not rejecting you. They're not rejecting your opinions. They're rejecting the house, and you don't want them to reject the house. You want them to buy the product.
You want them to buy the product.
Yes, because remember, you wouldn't stay there. At the very beginning, I had to show the house all the time, and you were always gone.
Because I was so worried about getting like that, right? You know.
So the first thing is you wanted to look at it as a product and draw them in.
Yeah.
Keep it basic and appealing.
To most people, right? And then the third thing, and this kind of goes into the product, but it was making them, when they peeked behind certain things, to realize, wow, they've taken really good care of this property. And so that they didn't worry about inspections or hot water heaters or whatever. They weren't afraid. And the way I did that was, like it or not, agent following them around or not, they will open your cabinets.
Yes. Oh, I remember. Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
So the way I did this, it's so important. Think about your coat closets, think about your pantry, your kitchen cabinets, and your bathroom cabinets, especially bathroom cabinets with children, right?
Yes.
That was so important, and I feel like it made a huge difference. It speaks volumes. So when we loaded up the pods, and we can get into that if you want to, because that was very strategic in how we did that. But my pantry, I kind of also did a show pantry. Mm-hmm. The bathrooms, remember, I decluttered everything, and the kids, like for the showers, they each had a shower bin. Mm-hmm. Remember, with their soap, their shampoo, their conditioner, and they kept only that under the sinks. Yep. And then when they needed to take a shower, they got that out, took it to the shower, took the shower. Yep. I would dry them off after, and they went back under the sink. So when people saw the shower, they didn't see shampoo and bars of soap and everything else. It was clean. There was like the pretty soap brush. Yep. So you get what I'm saying? That was really important. No clutter. So that just, I felt like, spoke to people, saying these people take really good care of it. So I wanted to.
Well, even the closets. You did that with the closets, because we did the roll with the clothes.
Yes.
And
our towels were rolled, and it was like, wow, these people live like this. Yeah. It was so impressive. Like, with 4 kids, they live like that? No, we didn't live like that. I mean, for what?
We actually do now, though, a lot. Because a lot of that stuff transferred.
It really did.
Yeah.
And you know what was funny? Do you remember the first pod was all the extra knickknacks and whatever, and that went on the first one, and then the second one was even more of that we would live. And most of our first and half of our second pod, once we got to our new house,
we're like,
we ended up selling or donating.
Yeah.
We're like, I don't even want this anymore. It was so nice.
Yeah, we almost didn't even empty the first pod, which was our last pod to unload. We pretty much left that in the driveway, and Facebook Marketplace a lot of that because we didn't need it. We had lived without it for several months.
And we loved it. It was really nice.
But, so
those were the 3 tactics, and my mindset is it was a product.
And that's huge because you're 100% correct. And as you're describing these things, I can tell you from experience walking through a place with a buyer, when you walk into a place and they open up a linen closet because they're gonna
they do, even though we follow them and we say, no, please don't.
Yeah, they're gonna open it up and they're gonna see how and they will say to themselves, it's not only, oh my gosh, this can be this organized and you can put this much stuff in here. It's also, you can see their mindset of, these people really have pride in their house, and it almost takes their perception of the feel of the home and gives it a much more positive vibe, for lack of a better term.
Think about it like this: when you buy a product, say anything, say you buy a blender, right? Yeah. When you can feel the heft of it, and you see, wow, they've even taken care with these threaded, full-on metal,
to attach it to the packaging.
All this is great, and it's not. Or you get one that's like plastic.
Yeah.
You feel more about that brand. You're like, I'm gonna put my KitchenAid on display with my Hamilton Beach. I'm like, that can go on the cabinet. Right?
Nothing wrong with Hamilton Beach.
We love Hamilton.
We are not sponsors of KitchenAid.
And KitchenAid.
But so that's
I would sponsor KitchenAid if you want to.
Yeah, give us a call. Housewarming guys. So that's exactly what I was hoping to get from you, was the mindset behind it, because we can get into the strategy and the tactics, like the tactical aspect of what do you do in each individual room.
That's what I could talk about all day.
She can talk about, and she will if you guys need anything. But you have to have that mindset, because quite often you'll go in and talk to somebody and they're like, I can even hear it when I'm on the phone with them. They're like, they're not going to like my this counter, but I just don't like this whole new white cabinet thing. And they refuse to even consider a change that would make them appeal to a larger market. And that ends up, they end up being the houses that you see the price cuts on.
Yeah.
It's not because the house isn't worth it, it's because the condition of the house does not support the price point.
Yeah, it's essentially, it's like, why force what you want on someone else, try to, right?
That's exactly it.
And I want to make another point for the parents out there who say it's really, really hard. Like, I can't do that with my kids. That wouldn't work. It would work, and I'm going to tell you another thing. It makes moving day that much easier.
Yes.
Not just easier physically, but emotionally easier.
Yes.
Because you had already packed up a lot of those memories.
Yes. And
kind of processed through it while you were slowly doing it all together, so that by the time moving day was actually there and we stood in that living room and it was completely empty, it was kind of like, this just doesn't even feel like home anymore, you know? And it was you're ready to move on. That was
And you brought up one last point, because I want to add something, like I have value here.
You have something.
So when you said that about we were standing there, do you remember the change in the house when we took that last mirror down?
Oh my gosh.
Focus on natural light. Do all the mindset aspect here, but in your mindset, if you love a dark house, get that out of your head. We have to let natural light in. Yeah. Mirrors are great for making that natural light come through. Now, I'm not saying mirror walls.
Keep your blinds and plantation shutters, keep those up, but all your other beautiful window coverings, remove them. And when we're showing, we're opening those blinds.
Yeah, we have to let that natural light in, because natural light is a huge seller right now. So
I mean, really, when they take pictures, the ideal thing is to remove even your window screens. And you're thinking, what? That makes a difference? It makes such a difference.
Yep, it shows a lot better. So, okay, so that's the mindset. That is going to make you. It's a no cost, huge return on investment. You might have to paint a little bit if you're changing colors and things like that. Paint. We're not going to get too into the weeds with this, but paint. A fresh coat of paint on your house is the highest return on investment you can get when selling your home. Talk about all the other things, updating bathrooms, all these other things, but when you put a fresh coat of paint on a house, you get 3 to 4-fold easy on your return for
That's
that.
true.
So
That's true.
paint, natural
Paint's
light,
everything.
great mindset. So with this being said, we're about to jump on a market report. Thank you for sharing. Like it was kind of neat to get in your mind and get that.
I'm like, ooh, I was the expert. That's awesome.
Yeah, and if you guys have any specific questions about tactics, put them in the comments or reach out to us, and she'd be more than happy to do a question and answer.
And KitchenAid.
Yeah, KitchenAid, give us a call.